Okay, so the heart aging.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, so, and this goes into why randomized controlled trials are important, because you can establish more causation, right, from an intervention. And this study was done by Ben Levine out of UT Southwest in Dallas. And it's to me, it's seminal, groundbreaking study that isn't talked about enough. By the way, he's just a phenomenal cardiovascular exercise physiologist. I mean, he trained with the biggest giants out there. And what he did was him and his lab took 50-year-olds that were sedentary. So they're middle age, 50 years old, sedentary but otherwise healthy. So you didn't have any other diseases besides being sedentary, which I think is a disease. But they didn't have any other diseases like cardiovascular disease or type 2 diabetes or hypertension, right? So they were otherwise healthy, just not active. And he wanted to see if he could put these guys on a pretty long 2-year training protocol. How would that affect the aging of their heart? So as we age, our hearts typically shrink in size and they get stiffer. And that affects not only our cardiorespiratory fitness and our ability to exercise, and I mentioned our cardiorespiratory fitness goes down with age, but it affects our cardiovascular disease risk as well. And so the reason our hearts get stiffer, by the way, does come down to a lot of glucose. So the more glucose stimulation, more glucose is around in your vascular system, it, through a chemical reaction, forms advanced glycation end products. So this glycation essentially stiffens the collagen that surrounds your myocardium and your pericardium. And so you get like this stiffer heart that can't respond to stress well, So you want your heart to be very plastic and malleable and flexible, right? You don't want it to be stiff.
Doesn't sound good.
Just like you don't want your blood vessels to be stiff. What he wanted to do was see if he could change the structure and the trajectory of these aging hearts. And so he put them on a 2-year training program, which involved the Norwegian 4x4, by the way. And when you start someone out that's, not physically active and you want them to do the Norwegian 4x4, when you have them doing their interval, their 4-minute interval, and this speaks to you as well, or anyone, you don't have to necessarily go as hard as you can the whole 4 minutes. You just have to be working hard, that interval.
Yeah, you do have to last 4 minutes, right? So
you have to last 4 minutes. And so some people even start off, they're just briskly walking because that's hard for them, right?
Yeah, totally.
So it's all tailored to the individual. And so some people get really intimidated where they're like, there's no way I could ever do that. Well, actually, these people did do it. And they started out doing Norwegian 4x4, but they also did a variety of other exercises, including moderate intensity and some more vigorous intensity exercise, as well as some resistance training. And the control group was just this like yoga, flexible training sort of stuff that people were doing. By the end of the 2 years, these people were working out about 5 hours a week. And at some point, they were doing 2 Norwegian 4x4s a week, and then they went down to just doing 1 a week. But, over the course of 2 years, they were getting a lot of exercise, about 5 hours a week. And essentially, at the end of those 2 years, the structure of their heart, so the stiffness of it and the, shrinking of it was reversed. So their hearts grew and they became more flexible. And it was reversed in such a way that it was 20 years less aging. So their hearts looked more like 30-year-olds than 50-year-olds, which is pretty incredible.
Yeah, that is amazing.
Yeah, it's amazing. And I think it's also like, well, you think 50, it's too late to start exercising. Well, it's not too late. You can be in your 90s and get benefits. I think that's another really important sort of take home with that story is that, you can reverse your aging of your heart by 20 years if you really put in the effort. Five hours a week is about what I do. About 5 or 6 hours a week. It's a lot of work. I didn't always do that, but I've decided as I started to get into my mid-40s, I'm going to spend less time podcasting and more time exercising because this is my health.